he actually called himself anti-metaphysician. He is anti-metaphysics. He says the true world, and he puts it in quotes, the true world, an idea which is no longer good for anything, an idea which has become useless and superfluous, consequently a refuted idea. Let us abolish it. Metaphysics is just another story we're making up. And we don't have a good foundation for it. He thinks all the metaphysics, starting from Plato, remember, that's just a fairy tale. And some of them are also not harmless. They actually can do some harm. In particular, he thinks that once we realize that there is no metaphysics, of course it is hard for us to live this way, which is why we make them up, right? We make up all these stories because it makes our life easier. If we believe in something, like if something bad is happening to you, what do? Typically, what do people do? If there's something bad and there's nothing they can do about it. Yeah.
They pray.
They pray to God, exactly. If there's nothing else left, they pray to God. So this exactly tells you everything you want to know, but if you believe that there is no God, what do you do then? It seems like you have a problem. Right? And this is where he himself gotten to. He says this sense of homelessness, because it feels like we are just stranded in this world, and if there is no God, no afterlife, nobody to take care of us, like it's nice to have God, right? There's a nice grandpa sitting out there taking care of it for you, helping you out. If there's no God, who's helping you out? Well, it's nice if you have parents or somebody to help you out, but what if you don't? Or what if your parents just don't care? This is sense of homelessness. The world becomes colder, night is closing in, humanity is left desolate and abandoned without this cosmic home. Homelessness is his favorite metaphor, describing human situation. We're wanderers who must resign ourselves to spiritual nomadism. Nomads are just this kind of tribes which were going from place to place. They didn't have a home. And his famous metaphor in gay science, God is dead. He says the greatest recent event that God is dead, that the belief in the Christian God has become unbelievable, is already beginning to cast its first shadows over Europe. We mentioned it last time. The Europe seemed very optimistic in the 19th century, but Nietzsche already saw that problem with that. He was saying that on one hand, of course, we have to be honest with ourselves. We don't want to lie to ourselves about that. On the other hand, if there is no God, if everything is permitted, then it seems like people may indeed start doing horrible things. So he was thinking that people will eventually do horrible things. And they did. 20th century saw 2 world wars, one worse than the other. Millions and millions and tens of millions of people died. Horrible things have been committed. In particular, again, the Nazis in Germany, which admired Nietzsche, and we will see later also which parts of his philosophy it seems like they would admire, even though they dismissed other parts which were not compatible with them. The Nazis were doing absolutely atrocious things, right? You guys know about Holocaust. They were trying to exterminate Jews. Literally, they were just collecting Jewish people, women, children, everybody, murdering them in gas chambers in droves, like they were trying to kill all of them. That's just unimaginable horror, but of course, if you don't believe in God and don't believe in any of these things, then somebody may say, like, why not? I don't like Jewish people, why not just kill all of them, right? And that seems extremely evil, but that if you believe in evil. But if there is no evil, then somebody can say, no, it's just, we're doing it because we feel like it. So that's something he foresaw. The age of secularism, he thought is coming up, and it will bring horrible things. But that part of the problem is we can't believe in God anymore. Even if we say we do, we can't. The science and everything already kind of showed to us that it seems like God doesn't exist. And then if that's the case, then how can you believe in something which you don't honestly believe exists? So only those who are detached from their culture, waiting on the mountains, can see the cultural crisis coming in the distance, which he thought was indeed inevitable. And as for the existence of God, he thought we don't even need any proof that God doesn't exist. Here's the quote. He says, "Formerly it was sought to prove that there was no God. Now it is shown how the belief in God existed, could have originated, and by what means this belief gained authority and importance. In this way, the counterproof that there is no God becomes unnecessary and superfluous." So basically he's saying, we understand why people invented God. And if we understand that, we don't need to disprove God. It's just kind of really follows from that immediately that people made it up. Okay, so what do you think you would say about Jesus? Like, without going any further, because I'll tell you in a few minutes. But let me see what you think. What do you think you would say about Jesus? Well, actually, the existence of Jesus is more or less historical fact. I mean, the fact that he was the Son of God, like literally, that's, I would say, controversial part. But the fact that there was a person like this who was crucified, there's actually some historical evidence that this is true. And there's nothing crazy about that. Like, there was a person who was preaching particular things, and the Romans crucified him. But as a person, what do you think you thought about him? It's actually interesting, yeah.
That he was lying. He wasn't. He was just not lying.
Pretending?
But, yeah, pretending.
Well, he actually did not question that very much. But there's an interesting way he looked at him. He did admire Jesus. He admired him. He thought Jesus does indeed deserve admiration. So in spite of the anti-religious conclusion, Nietzsche recognizes that there have been people in history who were religious, and religion had some beneficial effects. And he admires Jesus' personal power. He thinks that actually Jesus himself was this inner-directed person. Like, I mean, think about it. He stood up for what he believed in, and he died on a cross. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He didn't ask for the Pontius Pilatus to spare his life. He stood up for what he believed in. So that is the part which Nietzsche admires. He also admires his teaching. What did Jesus teach? Right, one big part of it. What did he say about the religion prior to his coming? You guys don't know? He rejected it. In fact, he was a rebel. It is one of the reasons why he was crucified. He said that is the wrong way to do it. He said, it's like right there in the New Testament, it says that eye for an eye. I tell you that is not how it should be. You should not pay with eye for an eye. And that's part of the Old Bible, right? Old Testament. There are many things in Old Testament which Jesus rejected. He said that is not how we should live. So that is critical thinker to you. That is somebody who actually takes the value, doesn't take this for granted, and questions them. And this is exactly what Nietzsche was doing, right? So that is something he admired. But he was not very fond of the Christians. So to him, actually, that's an interesting thing. He says, Jesus lived not to redeem man, but to show how one must live, by example. And he says, in truth, there was only one Christian, and he died on the cross. What does he mean here? Jesus is the only person who lived up to what he was saying. And everybody else who says, I admire Jesus, doesn't do anything nearly as much as he does. Right? People turned it into institution. That's exactly what Kierkegaard was saying. They come to church not to be like Jesus, but why? To pretend. To sit there for a few hours every Sunday and nod and then have this social conversation with others. And of course, that's not at all what Jesus did. In fact, if Jesus knew about it, he'd probably be horrified. The whole organized church goes completely against his teaching and his standing. So literally, Nietzsche blames it in particular on Paul. He says it's Paul's fault. Paul turned the entire thing into this system of a religion, which is not at all what Jesus had in mind. So while he admires Jesus, he, just like Kierkegaard, in that sense they are very similar, except of course Kierkegaard was religious and Nietzsche is completely anti-religious. But they agree about the Christendom, about the Christian religion, about the fact that the way people today think they are Christians and they think they are following Jesus is completely wrong. It's just turned into social institution. There's nothing left of the original Christianity there. So what now? Should we be upset about the whole thing, the death of God? No. He says that indeed we philosophers and free spirits feel when we hear the news that old God is dead, as if a new dawn shone upon us. Our heart overflows with gratitude, amazement, premonitions, expectation. At long last the horizon appears to be free again, even if it should not be bright. At long last our ships may venture out again, venture out to face any danger. All the daring of the lover of knowledge is permitted again. The sea lies open again. Perhaps there has never been such an open sea. So what does he mean? He means that that was still oppressive, the religious outlook, but everybody expected you to believe in certain things, and now you can believe in whatever you want. So that actually is a great opportunity. People don't realize it, but it is a great opportunity to find new values and to find a new way of life and to be free from all these old traditional kind of shackles. All our cognitive activities, he says, manifest a drive to achieve mastery and to exert personal power over our environment. That's one of his main ideas, the will to power. This principle, he calls will to power, is the fundamental psychological force in human life. So that is similarity with Schopenhauer, right? The will, which is driving everything. Here, Hegel agrees. Yes, there is a will, and that will drives all of us. Except Schopenhauer thought it's a bad thing, and we should withdraw from it. But Nietzsche thinks, no, it's a great thing, and we should embrace it. And how does it manifest? It's not just the physical or military power, right? It's not just that then we should have war and whoever wins. No, you can actually use it in a variety of different ways, including in art, in personal life, and so on. So what are the manifestations of the will to power? First of all, a saint, indeed, if somebody truly believes in God and acts like a saint, he says the will to power lurks behind the saint who disciplines her body and mind through the rigors and fasting, meditation to achieve ecstatic experience of the holy, which is why you also admire Jesus, right? If you believe so much that you really are dedicating your entire life to it, then that is admirable. Another possibility is an artist who struggles against poverty and criticism to impose his vision of the world on the mute materials of canvas and oil. That also is admirable. Really, right? There are some people, they really believe in what they do. And everybody tells them, this is stupid, just get a job. And they don't get a job, they just keep on doing what they love. And eventually they prevail. And that is the great story, right? You can admire that for sure. The scientists too, the scientists who subdue the wide range of physical phenomena by reducing them to elegant mathematical formula. That is also a type of power, right? Being capable of doing that. And the lover who risks rejection to win over affections of a person he adores or she adores, right? That is also admirable, just as long as there's passion, because the key word again is passion. Doing it with passion and truly achieving something, that's what is important. If you're doing that, you're exhibiting the will to power. Here we must beware of superficiality and get to the bottom of the matter, resisting all sentimental weakness. Life itself is essentially appropriation, injury, overpowering of what is alien and weaker, suppression, hardness, imposition of one's own forms, incorporation, and at least in the mildest exploitation. So what he is trying to say is, and people, again, just like Kierkegaard said, try to make their life easier all the time. Right? Easier, so that God forbid nothing bad happens. But if nothing bad happens to you, where is your life? What is your life? Of course, you don't want like really horrible things to happen. But you have to have at least some struggles. You have to at least overcome something. If there's nothing to overcome, if you're just sitting there watching TV all day, you're not even living. What's going on there then? Right? So the point here is you should embrace these problems, because you will have problems in your life for sure. Like nobody lives life without any problems. But instead of like constantly thinking, oh my God, I wish I never had any problems, embrace it. Battle against them and win. That's what he is trying to say. You should realize there will be problems and you should be ready to fight them. And be happy that you're fighting them. So that's his attitude. In terms of morality, that's one of the parts which I guess appealed to the Nazis and appeals to many people for wrong reasons. He was saying that there are two types of morality: master morality and slave morality. So even though all morality is manifestation of the will to power, when people talk about values, when they talk about morality, what actually is happening is some people try to overpower other people. Right? That is at the bottom of all that. But there are two approaches which he was distinguishing. Master morality, which is driven by the will to power and revels in it, and slave morality, which is also driven by the will to power, but attempts to deny this. And he actually obviously was not a fan of slave morality. So what exactly is a master morality? Refers to the values of psychologically powerful and strong-willed people. They are, according to Nietzsche, higher, more noble, aristocratic, elite segment of humanity. Those are people who are admirable. Not again necessarily like in military sense, but in whatever they do. Great artists, great scientists, great lovers, great philosophers. And these people just create their own values. Their slogan, you may say, my judgment is my judgment. Right? They are not listening to anybody. They are legislators themselves. On the other hand, so what is good for these people? What is good for the strong? He says that the values they should embrace is nobility, strength, courage, power, and pride. Strength, there's nothing wrong about strength. If somebody is a strong person, he can also be generous with others, or she. Right? But you have to be strong. Weakness is nothing to admire. Courage, the same thing. You should be courageous. The cowardness is nothing to admire. Weakness is nothing to admire. What is bad for these strong people? Anything which is contemptible, common, banal, pathetic, cowardly, timid, petty, humble. He thought these things are contemptible. They should not be embraced. Weakness. Signs of weakness, is not something to be proud of. On the other hand, slave morality, he was saying, that is when somebody lacks their own power, lacks their own ability to achieve anything, but still tries to somehow grab whatever they can through this fearful, resentful reaction to the strong. Trying to, for one thing, make the strong feel guilty. Try to appeal to their sense of compassion, and so on. So that would be an example of slave morality. It's a sour grapes morality, right? People who can't achieve anything in life themselves, and then they try to just guilt the strong people into submitting to them. Here's a kind of mini quote when he shows the type of this morality. I don't like him. Why? I'm not equal to him. So what is he talking about? Where somebody is better than you and you don't like them because they're better, right? That is this type of morality which he hated. They also want power, but they pretend that they don't. Why? Because they can't have any power. So they pretend they don't want power, but in the reality they're trying to grab the power. So when it says in the Bible, meek shall inherit the earth, he would disagree with that. He would say that meek, maybe they will inherit the earth, but they cannot be great artists, great leaders, great philosophers, or even great lovers. There is nothing admirable about meekness. You should be strong, and you should admire your strength. But, he says, slaves do have the numbers because most people actually are slaves. They have this slave mentality. And for this reason, he was not a fan of democracy. He was not a fan of liberalism. He thought that, no, that is actually a very wrong way to put things. So it's interesting to try to apply his ideas to what is happening today. But he's not one-dimensional in this sense. He would, of course, also admire people who are leaders, even if he disagrees with them in terms of policy, for example, right? So Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, I think Nietzsche would admire her, for sure. She seemed like a strong person, right? So that is something he would admire. What you would think about Trump, that's an interesting question. I honestly have no idea. But it's hard to talk about it in these terms because he lived such a long time ago. Who knows what he would say today. Anyway. So some example of the slave morality. Oppressed people such as ancient Jews and early Christians, he thought that they had the type of slave morality there. Motivated by resentment, they made their weakness a virtue and viewed anyone who was powerful as evil. And he says that we should reevaluate all our values, keeping this in mind, and look at them from a different point of view. It's not like we need to invent completely new values, but we should look at values such as honesty, courage, integrity, self-discipline, which even Aristotle, remember, was admiring. And think about them and see whether or not they are life-preserving, whether or not they are making us achieve something more. So that's, to him, was the evaluation. Again, pragmatic point of view and aesthetic point of view. From pragmatic point of view, is this really something which helps us to advance? And from aesthetic, like, does this look beautiful? Does it look interesting? Other than just thoughtlessly saying good and bad about something based on common morality, because that's one of the things he was trying to destroy. One of those idols, when people already have the preconceived notions of what is good and bad, and they just thoughtlessly repeating it. Now that the shabby origin of these values is becoming clear, the universe seems to have lost value, seems meaningless. But that is only a transitional stage. We should get to better values. And so his famous Zarathustra book on Zarathustra, that's one of his books where he uses metaphors and fables, actually. Invented this never existing prophet Zarathustra. And that Zarathustra talks about Overman coming. An Übermensch in German. So Nazis did obviously like it. They thought that they were the Übermensch, the Overmans. But that's not exactly what he meant. However, he does have some interesting, striking metaphors in this book. So who is the Overman? It's a type of individual who fulfills the ideal that will save humanity from its own psychological distraction. He thinks we are self-distracting. The one who will rise above mediocrity and culture and human nature as we know it. He says the man is a rope stretched between beast and overman. A rope over an abyss. It's a striking metaphor, right? A man is a rope between a beast and an overman. And below it is an abyss. One becomes an overman not through an evolution, but by process of self-cultivation, which can only be accomplished through act of the will. So what do you need to become an overman? Well, for one thing, you need to have some genes. You need to have something biological already there, and then you shall move beyond it. So another quote from Zarathustra, I teach you the overman. Man is something that shall be overcome. What have you done to overcome him? So, who exactly is an overman? Well, at one point in another book, he does mention, he says, it's a union of spiritual superiority with well-being of an excess of strength. And he gives an example, Roman Caesar with Christ's soul. Roman Caesar, do you guys know the Caesar, who Caesar was? Roman Emperor Caesar, Julius Caesar, who was betrayed by Brutus, who killed him, right? Never heard of it? So anyway, he is considered like one of these strong leaders, but with Christ's soul. So the soul should be that of Jesus Christ, but in the same time a strong person. So that's how he saw this overman, and he thought that we should strive to become like that. And it doesn't have to be military power or physical strength. It's a psychological strength type thing. And life should be looked at as a work of art. This from purely aesthetic point of view. Overman is a unity of reason and passion. There should be some reason. Of course, he's not saying reason should be abandoned altogether. He criticized reason a lot, but that's because he thinks we are too excited about reason. We're thinking reason is a solution for everything. Like Socrates thought, reason will tell you whatever you need to know. But he's not saying we should just go with the passion all the time. It should be a combination. In a truly creative person, the one who goes beyond producing external art objects and who can live own life as a work of art. Look at your life as a work of art. A human being who should be strong, highly educated, skillful in all body matters, self-controlled, reverent towards himself, and who might dare to afford the whole range and wealth of being natural, being strong enough for such freedom. The man of tolerance, not from weakness, but from strength, because he knows how to use his own advantage, even that from which the average nature would perish. The man for whom there is no longer anything that is forbidden, unless it be weakness, whether it called vice or virtue. So that's what he thought overman should be. So I mentioned these two things. This is another interesting part of his philosophy, and it goes back to ancient Greeks. The myth of eternal recurrence. So the Greeks first said it, and Nietzsche repeated it after them, but with a slightly different purpose. The idea is like this. If you look at the world from material point of view, there's only so many combinations all the atoms and so on can take. But if world doesn't have an end or the beginning, if the world is eternal, all these combinations, sooner or later, will have to be repeated. So if that is the case, it means everything, including you, will be born again. Like the whole story of the world will be repeating and repeating and repeating all over again. And so you will live exactly the same life again and again and again and again. So for Nietzsche, the biggest question then is this. So this life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more. And there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sign and everything unutterably small and great in your life will have to return to you, all in the same succession and sequence. Would you then embrace it, or would you not want it? Right? So you can ask it yourself about your own life. Suppose I will live this life not just once, but again and again and again and again. Do I want to do that? Is my life, can I embrace my life the way it is? Can I enjoy it the way it is? Can I say, that is a great life and I really want to repeat it again and again and again? And if the answer is no, then something is going wrong. Right? So that is exactly how he meant it. So to him, it's not so much that it will happen. Obviously, we don't know if it will happen. But you should live your life as if it is the case. And you should constantly ask yourself, do I own my life so much that I would not mind to have it repeated? And he says, my formula for greatness in a human being is Amore Fati. Remember I said, Amore Fati, love your faith. That one wants nothing to be different, not in all eternity, not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it. Right? So everything, including the problems, including bad things which inevitably happen to all of us, just understand that this is all part of this picture. It's like a good movie. Would a good movie be just happy, happy, happy? Everything happy? Would you watch it then? Like usually when you have a movie and like the main characters are get together and a happy ending, that's the ending, right? There's nothing to watch after that. If you wanted to make a second part with them just being happy, nobody would even watch it. It's like, okay, they're happy, whatever. They have to struggle. They have to have something going wrong. They have to overcome that. And that's his point. Like, you have to look at your life in this way. Don't be afraid of problems. Embrace the problems. Love the problems. The problems is what make your life interesting. The problems is what is necessary to really feel that you're living. So this is the Amore Fati. And create your own meaning. Anyone who can approach life with this attitude is an overman. When you can give your life meaning yourself. Don't just try to rely on other people giving meaning to you. Such people have overcome the human psychological need to find meaning and are content to live with the smaller things they have created for themselves.